Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, a podcast where we're seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. We're also here as a platform for leaders to come together to unite, to develop and empower other leaders in the areas of business, family, and community. I'm your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBrun, and today we are joined by our special guest, Cory Carlson, who has joined us to have a discussion of how to win at home while winning in business. He has an extensive bio that has a lot of good nuggets in it. And I don't want to read all of it because I want him to unpack it in the conversation that has a lot to do with our topic today. But Cory, thanks for coming on and welcome to Unscripted.
Well, Lafayette and John, thank you both very much for having me. And I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well. So we're talking about how to win at home while winning in business. And reading your bio, you come from extensive background from a successful corporate career. And I wanted to kind of tap there into what made you exit the corporate career after having such a successful career in corporate America and start wanting to place more of an emphasis at home.
Yeah, I loved my corporate career and actually never thought I would leave it. I enjoyed working. I'm a civil engineer by degree, got an MBA. I always picture myself as that corner office guy. Like that is kind of how I just envisioned myself. It's kind of what I was prepping for and kind of gunning for. And there came this moment where I was VP, $120 million division, and work-life balance was out of whack. Days that I had a great presentation with the executive team, I thought I was the man. And days that it didn't go well, I thought I was going to get canned. And so it was one of those deals where I would skip gym workouts. I'd have the laptop on my lap at night just to make, kind of make sure that I was doing well. I was taking my identity to work. And I had done that previously in my career, and that did not turn out well. And so in this situation, I want to do something differently. And so I reached out to my boss, who I really liked, but we were always traveling different directions in the country every week. And when I called Tom, I just said, hey, this is kind of what's going on. Need some help. And he said, get an executive coach. I've always had one. So I hired an executive coach, went through the interview process, and found one that was also faith-based. And I absolutely just loved the coaching process. I would learn tools and I would quickly turn around and use them on the employees. And then I took one more corporate move where I became president of sales for a national contractor. And so I had 30 salespeople throughout the country. And same thing, I would use these same tools. And I saw them become better spouses, better parents, as well as our profitability for our company improved. So as I sat there thinking, and this tension was growing in my life of, I became a better person through coaching. These 30 people have became better and the company grew. I want to do this for a living. And so if I can go impact, 300, 3 million, whatever that number is, I want to go impact more people. And so that is when my heart started to change to say, I want to do the coaching. And so that's why I left corporate. And that was a whole journey in itself.
Very cool. So you focus a lot on helping essentially, it may be men and women, but what I've seen so far is primarily help men essentially, yes, win in corporate, but also win in their family. Is that about right?
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
I do coach women as well, like predominantly men. I think men are just more, gravitate more towards me as far as my style. But the reason I focus so much on work and home is I don't think you can win in one and still win in the other without effort and intentionality. If you're putting all your focus at work, eventually, home's just going to fall apart, whether it's through an actual divorce, or maybe could be more common is just your roommates with your spouse.
Mm-hmm. So how is focusing on winning at home also helping them win in their career?
I think all the listeners can relate, as you guys may be able to relate as well. If things are tense at home and like you get in a fight at 7 a.m., you're going to be thinking about that fight at 9 a.m. meeting. And so you're not going to be able to bring your A game. You're going to be distracted a little bit, like, oh, I should have said this. Oh, I wish I would have said that. And then it's going to kind of, it may kind of fade away throughout the day. Then about 3 o'clock or whatever time it is, it's going to start back up again because you're thinking about driving home and the re-entry into the house. Oh, man, when she says this, I'm saying that. And then I'm going to do this. And so what ends up happening is if home is not going well, you have to think about home while you're work. But when the relationship of your marriage, with your kids, and even some of your own personal stuff, like you're getting to the gym, you're doing your quiet time. If you are in a good place at home in your personal life, it will allow you to show up as your best self at work.
So then what are some keys to getting to that place? So you can be your best self and show up at work. But what are the keys to getting to that place at home?
I think, the book is divided up into 4 parts. Starts out with you, then marriage, then parenting, and then work. So the first part is you. I mean, it starts with you, and depending on the individual, and even, I'm executive coach for a living. And so depending on the individual, I'll start to talk and see, where's their greatest challenge that they're having or their frustration? Because that's the low-hanging fruit that we're going to want to go after. For example, if it's the individual that just feels they have no margin, well, we got to prune. We got to prune a few things so you can actually have some space. Maybe you've got some control issues. And the reason you're working all the time is because you think your team sucks and they're not going to get anything done. Well, let's work on some control. Some anxiety or just some anxiousness about whatever it could be or whatever that may be. Leaders need to introduce solitude in their life. If they don't have some solitude, all of us are running around like, at this high level, and solitude allows us to, totally slow down a little bit and think. And we're, a lot of your listeners, I believe, are faith-based. I am myself. And so spending time in the Word, journaling, praying, that helps me calm everything down and kind of, quite honestly, puts life into perspective. Being so worried about my LinkedIn connections, or did that client respond to my email, or am I going to get the prospect? Sometimes in quiet time, that all just settles down, and it gives me that courage to get back up and kind of go about my day, with the confidence. And so solitude is a great thing for the individual to get involved if you're not doing it. And then for the marriage, it's go on a date. When's the last time you went on a date with your spouse? You've got to get just connected. And a lot of listeners will have kids, and we don't go on dates because we're too busy with the kids. And that's a miss. No matter what the age of the kids are, we've got to figure out a way to get a date. And that date just may be going to the back of the house, like kind of in the sun porch area or on the deck while the kids are asleep, and just talking, having tea or having wine, depending on the time of day, and just kind of hanging out and having fun.
Yeah, so important because eventually they're going to turn 18.
You brought your identity to work. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I took my identity to work?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Early on, and, this is a big part of, my story of, early on, and when I was a civil engineer, and I was doing great. Work was great. I'm moving up the ladder as fast as I could. But it still wasn't enough. I was actually in this learning development program for up and coming leaders. And I was in my 20s, and I was the only one in my 20s in this group of 40. Everyone else was 30s, 40s. I was just getting cool opportunities. And I say all that to say, even though I was getting the opportunities, it wasn't enough. And so taking my identity to work was not a good idea. Then I decided I'd start taking my identity to my wife. Maybe she could make me feel like a real man, a better person, all that. Well, when a broken person can't help another broken person. So two humans can never help each other. And so when that didn't work out, I decided, hey, I'd take my identity and my questions of who I am to another woman, which is obviously a very bad idea. So I don't recommend that to any listener. But that was part of my story, is I didn't understand identity and what that looked like and taking it to my job. And so that's what it looked like back then. And so I did, in fact, have an affair. I came, clean a few years later. That's just part of an awesome God story in my life and the restoration of me individually, my wife individually, and us as a couple. And then, so when I got back into that job where I was at VP and I hired my executive coach, I mean, that's what I was looking to avoid. I didn't want to go down some bad path or some midlife crisis or some red sports car or, an affair or whatever it could be, because I knew that path that I could go. And so that's why I wanted an executive coach. I want to try it another way.
What qualities and characteristics were you looking for when you were looking for that executive coach?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I want an executive coach that, well, obviously one, I had chemistry with. I mean, I talked to a few and it's like, man, I don't even, want to hang out. I mean, I don't even think I would like to get a beer with you or even, go for a long walk talking, or whatever. So first, it's got to be chemistry. But I also wanted to know that they would challenge me, that I could just get a sense there. They were going to ask some insightful questions that were going to, basically make me think. Like a mentor, like a lot of times mentors are just high on encouragement. Yeah, go for it. You can do that. And that's all great. But I need challenge. I need accountability. I need to push me. But hey, if I say, oh, I think I'll have it done maybe, by the end of the month, they may say, why? I mean, why can't you get it done by the end of next week? Like there's just these different challenges that a coach can do. And so I wanted the chemistry. I wanted someone that was going to challenge me. And then I also wanted a faith-based coach. Because of my story and how God has, worked in my life, I wanted to make sure that I was weaving business and faith into my development. I just didn't want to read a whole bunch of business books or have a business coach and just helping me with P&L. I wanted help with the business, but I also wanted to figure out, hey, how do I integrate God into my life?
You had said something that was interesting to me. You said winning at work just wasn't enough. No matter how much success you had, it just was never enough for you. And I think so many people can relate to that because there's a lot of successful individuals that still come home and feel empty at the end of the night. They still drown themselves in other things after work that are not what we would consider ideal for success. So what was enough, and how does somebody find that sort of quote unquote enough?
Yeah, I think when we go find our identity in temporary things, one, it's just temporary and is not, sustainable for it. And so taking the identity to work, or you even hear that Tom Brady quote after the Super Bowl where I got the Super Bowl and like, that's it. I have an opening story in my book. I heard a Navy SEAL, Chad Williams, do a talk, and I was totally moved by it. And I asked him to, if I can include that in the book. And it's basically he made it to the top of the Navy SEALs, broke records, did incredible things in Navy SEAL, and it wasn't enough. He got to the top. He, broke the records, and it's like, that's it. And we all run that. We all run into that problem. So where I found my true identity is when I realized I was a beloved son of God. And once I knew I was approved, I can then work from a place of approval. Because if we don't recognize that we are a son or daughter of God, then we're always going to be looking to other things for approval. We're always going to be on this chase. Hey, well, once I get this promotion, then I've arrived. Once I make 6 figures, I've arrived, or $1 million, I've arrived, or whatever the moving target is, we feel and we get there and it feels empty when we finally do hit it. And it's not enough. And we got to go find the next thing. And so once I understood that whole phrase of, kind of working from a position of being approved, man, it was freeing. Like, do I still have my bad days? Absolutely. Do I still have my moments of balancing selfish ambition between godly ambition, my glory or God's glory? Like, I still wrestle with that. But the good news is I'm aware of it and I can recalibrate quicker to operating as a son and doing things for God's glory.
And does that recalibration have anything to do with the pruning process that you mentioned before?
Absolutely. And one pruning process just actually came to mind was actually involved you in the standpoint through LinkedIn messaging. I had a pruning process that, towards the end of last year, I just found that I was taking my identity to the podcast. I had this like guilt in my own podcast. It was doing well. It was growing. And I was like, oh, there was these moments of like, cool, I'm the man. This is pretty awesome. This is great. And some great, fantastic guests and good conversations. And then, so on the highs, I was like, this is woohoo. But then if the next week was lower than last week, then it started to deflate me. And so I was going on this emotional roller coaster, and I just was praying about it. And I felt this idea that I need to stop the podcast, just hit pause. I didn't have a deadline. Like, I didn't feel like God said, you need to stop it for 2 weeks. And then after that, I just stopped. I felt this conviction to stop and restart if and when I so choose. So I did. I think I'd have to do the math, but I think I was 6 weeks. I think I was off. I just turned it off. I mean, I just didn't record anything for 6 weeks. And therefore I didn't check Libsyn to see how many downloads I got. I wasn't anticipating getting emails about it or checking LinkedIn or other social media about it. It was so freeing. And I loved it. It was exactly what I needed. And so then I did feel, call it permission. I could kind of go back and put it back on, but I was just going to handle it differently. And that has been the case. I don't know the last time I've looked at Libsyn to see how the downloads are doing. I really haven't. And not that it's bad. I may go look again and see what it's doing, but I'm in a different place with it now. I still want to do it. They're amazing conversations. I will hear positive feedback from, folks, how it's helping them or this story helped. So feeling good about it. But yeah, that's an idea of pruning. I think in the context, when I said pruning a little bit ago, it's just like, we just got to make sure our calendars aren't jam-packed because we're doing things for approval. I'm an Enneagram 3. I'm an extrovert. If I'm not careful, I can fill my calendar with having coffees and lunches and beers with everybody and Zoom calls in between. And part of it is, if in order to be the man, then my calendar better be full. And that is unhealthy. And I know a lot of Enneagram 3s, extroverts struggle with it. And so that's when I'll start to prune. I'll be like, you know what? I need to be at home, or, whatever it may be.
You've recently written a new book that's about to be released called Rise and Go. What's the premise behind the book?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Lafayette. You know what? I'll tell you what it's all about, and hopefully all the listeners can relate. And I believe they'll be able to relate. Is, I talked about this tension I had going from corporate America into coaching, and I did. I mean, I made it. I made the plunge. Basically, I wanted to go into coaching. I didn't have the guts to pursue entrepreneurial. At the time, I was 40 years old. I had 3 young kids, and I just had the guts to do it. And so but I want to be a coach, and hey, I want to go do these things. Well, in August of 2016, I ended up getting terminated from that president of sales job. We were owned by a private equity group, and we were starting to downsize throughout the country in some of our lower performing markets. Instead of spending more time to ramp them up, which we did have a good path forward, they didn't want to do it anymore. And so if you get rid of enough territories and salespeople, you don't need a president of sales anymore. And so that was my deal. So I had a 4-month severance package, and I went and hustled, and I built as much of the coaching I could. I got to about 50%. And then I found another 50% job. Well, over the course of, those few years, I was able to go 75-25, then 90-10. Well, we get to this point, January 2020, and we decide, you know what? My wife and I decided, hey, this is kind of where we're at. I think we may have, thanks to God's provision, we got to this moment that we could probably make a decision. So we decided we were going to go all in to coaching, speaking, on March 1st, 2020. We had our own insurance. We had everything all ready to go. March 1st, you know what date this is getting around. So we go all in. We're excited. And basically in 2 weeks, 35% of my revenue is gone because all speaking engagements were canceled because of COVID. And at that time, we didn't, obviously, none of us as a country knew how to quickly pivot into Zoom. Zoom was not even on some people's radar. And so I was scared. I was frustrated. I was on my hands and knees at quiet time. And I was frustrated, God, like did I miss a signal? Like what happened? I thought we were going, doing this coaching thing. And kid that's gonna be in college in a couple years from at that time. I was like, this is awful. What a disaster. So I was on my hands and knees. And so the reason for the book is starting at 2020, I was looking for things that kind of help pull me up. I was in, we all think of that graph that goes up and to the right. And if we look close, it never goes straight line. It's peaks and valleys. And every one of us gets in those valleys from time to time. And I believe all leaders do get knocked down, but the great ones get back up quicker. And so what I found in that year of 2020 is God was putting just these particular verses in front of me. The podcast guest were saying certain things or stories that were helping me. All these things were kind of coming together to help me get back up and to start climb up to that next peak. And so I was, in fact, able to have success. 2020 ended up being a fantastic financial year, but also a fantastic relational year. Family was closer, spending more time together, and even spiritually had some great growth. And so all this took place. I'm like, I think there's something here to help other leaders with the things I put together. So I started sharing it with clients. Hey, here's a story, here's an idea, here's a piece of content. And so it became battle tested in 2021 as I shared this information with clients and saw that they were able to get up faster after their down days. And so I was like, all right, I'm putting this in a book. So the Rise and Go book is a collection and basically of 20 different chapters of things that will help you get back up with courage, go forward with confidence. And I'm looking forward for many people to get it in their hands.
Wow. That's awesome. I love it. Essentially, it's almost like God was pruning you for even more success. If you come at it with the right attitude of the obstacles, like now you're just elevating. We're always going to have those. I'm starting something myself, and I'm always starting something. I feel like, my wife said, "How do you think it's going to go if the economy dips?" I was like, "It's going to be fine." I said, if you look right now at some people who have really ascended in their companies and so forth, but I don't know how their home life is. It appears fine. But a lot of them started in 2007, 8, 9, 11, those times when it wasn't amazing. And then they ran, they hustled. And then as the economy went, it was more like pouring gas on top of their business because they hustled even when it wasn't easy. So I always tell people the best time is essentially now. It was yesterday probably. And then the next best time is today. But that's awesome. I'm really proud of you that you put all that together and you're really helping some people out with that. How important is it as we wrap up? You mentioned a bunch of things about getting your day started and that sort of thing. I've always paid attention to my mornings, but I've probably taken a more, I would say, focus on how my mornings are starting. For example, someone challenged me to do something called morning pages, which means every morning you get up and you just write for a handful of minutes, whatever comes to mind. You never actually go back and check on it. You just write and write and write. And then you flip the page and it's done for the day and you get your day on. It's very therapeutic. Like, is there anything you do specifically in the morning that really helps you ascend your day?
Yeah, there is. Also to answer this, I would say people's morning time, any listener, they're also seasonal. And I think some people think they got to have this perfect routine for life. Like everyone out there has this one, all the great leaders, they've got this one routine. And that's how they always do it. And it works perfect. They read X 100%. Amount of verses. They say this prayer. They do this journaling. And it's just cool. Man, I'm sure someone out there's probably got something perfect, but what I've seen in my own life, talking with my mentors and learning, I mean, it's seasonal. Some people will, they'll do a 40-day devotion, some book out there that'll be a 40-day pattern. Then that's over and they're like, I think I want to do something different. So I think maybe I'll dive into a book of the Bible and just read each chapter. And so I'll do that over a month. And then, it just changes. So I think in your quiet time, my coach has said, if you aren't hearing from God in your quiet time, then change up your quiet time and just try something different. So my style, what works for me, and back to this season, the church I go to, Crossroads Church in Cincinnati, big mega church, is we're being very intentional about going through the Bible on their app. And so I'll read what we're going through right now. We're doing Luke, and, read the chapter that the church is doing. And so I'll read that, and I will provide a journal entry on the app. But I like to read a paper. That's one thing I am still strong on personally. I'm still a paper Bible guy. Got it kind of up right here. I like writing in it. I like underlining. I'm a highlighter. Like, that's me. Nothing wrong with electronics, but I'm the paper. And I'm also a written journal guy. I like to write in the journal. I'll write some stuff. People ask me questions all the time. Like, you made the comment, John, well, just, kind of continuous writing. My journal doesn't really do that. Like, my journal, I'll make tables, I'll make lists, I'll write down like 2 words. Other times I'll write sentences. For me, the reason I journal, the biggest reason, is it keeps me focused on the quiet time. I'm not as good as the monks where I can just be quiet time. If I don't have a pen in my hand and journaling, I will go look at my computer. I'll grab my phone. And I'll just, before I know it, I'm out of quiet time and I've already started working. And so if I can do pen in hand, it keeps me kind of focused and doing that. So that's what's helped me. I need to work out in the morning and I need to do my quiet time. I'm a paper Bible guy and a pen and paper. But like I said, for this season, I've been adding in some digital reading with our church. So I don't know if that helps or just confuses everybody else.
It's good.
Cory, we always wrap up our last segment called Off Script. We ask our guests to just leave our audience with one last thing that's on your heart.
Like right now, it's still a little bit of my brand as far as what we talked about, just that idea of winning at home. But, I just came out a couple emotional weekends because my oldest is going to college in August. And so we had, the last dance recital, obviously the graduation. Next week we go out of town for dance nationals. But it's all, it's pretty darn emotional. And no matter what age your kid is, there's this thought that, I got some time, and there's this phrase, the days are long, but the years are short when you're raising kids. And it is. The days are long. Some of those days just stink. I get it. And yeah, go to bed early. But do what you can to be intentional. I got an amazing relationship with our kids. And it's just because we're intentional. We're not perfect parents. There's anger in our house. There's temper tantrums. There's, jerky dad. There's everything in our house, just like all of your houses. So we're not perfect. The whole reason I wrote the book Went Home First is because I lost at home first. So, but the thing that we do that I can confidently say works is we're just constantly trying to be intentional. We're trying to be, trying to recalibrate. I try to think, when's the last time I had a date with a kid? When's the last time I had a date with Holly? And I need to do that. So we try to do that. But the point of all that, Lafayette, to say is, man, the time's going to come when they move out, and grab a hold of it. I got a post that's in my queue. It's coming out soon, but, I'll be married 24 years here in a couple weeks. In that time, I think I've had 18 bosses, like 5 employers. We've lived in 3 cities. I have 3 kids and 1 wife. And if you look at that whole stair step, it's like the one that's been around for 24 years has been my wife. And heck, I even screwed up and did something stupid. And then my 3 kids are right there. I mean, we so often, this phrase we use in our house is don't give others the best and then we get the rest. A lot of us are giving the best of that top of that pyramid. It's an inverted pyramid or whatever that shape is that I just described. We're giving our best to that top, and in the bottom, that 3 kids and 1 wife in my scenario is getting the rest. And I encourage all the listeners as you hear this to be like, man, that's wrong. It doesn't make sense. Why do I give all to this particular boss that I may not even see them in a year? Because they're gone or I'm gone. And so that's what I would end you with is just, man, when you're making choices, when you're deciding to work late, man, you got to all work late. I mean, I've been working late writing this book, but then there's a time to recalibrate. There's a time to make sure you get a staycation. So anyways, that was a long off script winded answer, but there you go.
No, man, you blessed me that don't give others the best and then give your family the rest. That's how you do the off script moment. Stay connected with Cory. Follow him on social media at Carlson Cory. Also, his website is www.corymcarlson.com. And as we discussed, go out and purchase his upcoming book, Rise and Go. And until then, go and purchase his former book that he has written, Win at Home First. Again, thank you, Cory, for having this incredible conversation with us on how to win at home while winning in business. Stay connected to us here at UnScripted. On all social media, we're at UnScripted Leadership. You can check out our website, unscripted-leadership.com. Our podcast is available on all streaming platforms. And if you want to support our mission to help leaders continue to empower and develop them in the areas of business, family, and community, check out our patreon.com/unscripted leadership. As always, we pray that you be the leader that God has called you to be. We're here to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide. Until next time, God bless you.